v.h.s.x? What do you mean?
Alright everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I wanted to talk about a video from Scott Jun titled New Myers Feels Somehow Weaker Than Old Myers. And as you guys know, I've spoken about the New Myers rework extensively before it actually released. So I do want to hear another perspective on it. And just to kind of hear the reasons as to why Scott believes that Myers does feel weaker. And I've already stated, even before the rework even dropped, that I had a lot of issues with this. And I can link those at the end, of course, of the video. But let's go ahead and dive into this topic. And let's just see what Scott's talking about.
Over how the old Myers was better in that regard. The main thing that the old Myers could do was, it was called 99 in your tier 2. So you had the same kind of evil within level up system that you have in the current version now, except when you went from tier 2 to tier 3, it was instant and you can just instantly hit somebody, and additionally you had a smaller tear radius in tier 2, so you can combine that with things like Monitor and Abuse and the add-on Dead Rabbit to basically have a 6 meter tear radius. Not basically, you would have a 6 meter tear radius, which when you're moving 4.6 meters a second, gives the survivor basically 1 second of reaction time before they get to a window or pallet, which almost every time they were not going to be able to do unless the generator was like inside of a pallet or something like that. So with that, you could basically sneak up on the best player on the planet. It doesn't matter if they're the best looper that exists. If you don't hear or see anything, and then within 1 second he's on you and lunging at you and you're just dead, I don't care how good you are, you're going to die in a millisecond. Now, at the same time, that was terrible gameplay. You shouldn't be punished because your idiot Meg teammate just sat and let the Myers stalk to...
Well, that is where I can sort of disagree to some extent. I think that because of the fact that it is a survivor team with 4 people that need to work together, the bad apple in that sense will ruin the bunch, because one person is extremely important to a four man team. And so if as much as it can feel bad that your teammate is terrible at the game, it's just sort of how it works. Like, if they have a skill issue, it inevitably is going to bleed into you, because you still have to save them and do whatever have you. Now, touching on Monitor and Abuse with the Rabbit add-on, unfortunately Monitor did get nerfed, so no idea why, but it got nerfed, and so they can't actually do that anymore. But I also think that despite that, how people can judge Myers for his I would say outdated sort of play, I guess you can say, where he can pop up on people and one shot, there's 2 points that I want to make. All right, number one, that I think, like, despite the fact that he's able to do that, or was able to do that, I don't think it really made Myers overall that strong. Like, he was still very low tier, and even if that does happen, it's not like it really is going to raise up his strength level, and it's not going to guarantee a win for the Myers. The second point is that there's another killer or so that can do that, which is Ghostface, and people probably, considering he's completely undetectable in the first place, they most likely are going to get one shot down the same exact way, and nobody has a problem. And so I wonder why Myers is being sort of judged so, like, I would say judged slightly unfairly in that sense, because of the fact that he's just one of the 2 that can.
99%, then he sneaks up on you, he's got a tombstone piece, and he just kills you instantly. Like, that's terrible gameplay, so I understand why.
So tombstone piece, of course. Now, the thing with tombstone piece is that it wouldn't technically be the Meg that was really feeding him, but more so the other 3 that were feeding him in that point, because tombstone historically just requires a ton of stock at that, before obviously the patch now, that it almost required you to like lose maybe 1 to 2 gens before you even have a fighting chance to get enough to get past tier 2. And to be fair as well, if somebody is running the Rabbit add-on, that would also be more impossible, in my opinion, to be one-shotted with a tombstone piece if they're running Rabbit, because like I've said, most people running Tombstone are going to also be using the J Memorial, or the other add-on that increases the stalking rate because of how long it genuinely does take to actually get to the tier 3. So that would mean that he would be a completely normal M1 killer. So even if they get M1'd by like a low terror radius killer, it still doesn't guarantee that they're gonna die. So that is sort of like where I disagree.
They wanted to change that, and I supported them wanting to change that. But what they gave in response was just not nearly enough to mitigate that strength that he lost. Now, make no mistake, that was his only strength. That was the only thing that made him able to down good players, but they took that away. Now he has no real mechanic to down good players at all, because now there's too many delays and warnings that give survivors plenty of time to get to a safe.
Now that I do agree with. That I do agree with with Myers' strength. The mere fact that he has like at least 5 different sound cues and a bunch of slowdowns to do like just the smallest of things is insane. Like, it's insane. Like, I think that you get a sound cue of him starting to stalk. I'm pretty sure you get a sound cue when he's about halfway, if not almost done. Then you get another sound cue when he's tier 3. Then you get another sound cue for something else, and then you get another sound cue when he puts his knife up your ass. And it's like, why do we have so many sound cues? Then he has to pull out this janky animation to look at the stupid weapon, and then has to finally pick it up. But then he has to charge it too. So I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, I agree with that point.
Safe distance or a pallet or something like that, and that is what makes him so much weaker. Again, from a design standpoint, he is without a doubt far more interesting to go against, and that's good, I guess. But like I said, they didn't compensate enough to not make him absolutely terrible as a killer. So let's go over the things that he has gained now. First up, let's go over Pursuer mode. I think Pursuer mode is terrible. A lot of people are vastly overestimating this, or they're just straight up wrong with the numbers involving these things. So I want to go over specifically what actually changed with Pursuer mode. Pursuer mode is just basically tier 2, except you can switch back and forth to tier 1. Now, to a lot of people, this is a really, really cool benefit, and I can kind of understand that. To me, this is not as much of a benefit as you would think, because getting from tier 1 to tier 2 took like, with the previous version of Myers, if you like did a max distance stalk at someone on a generator, it would take like 3 seconds to get to tier 2, and you never had to worry about that for the rest of the game. You really did not have to worry about tier 1 like at all with the previous version of Myers where they buffed the distance stalking. It was seriously, I think it was like 3.5 or 3.6 seconds of a distance stalk to get to tier 2, and you wouldn't have to worry about it for the rest of the entire game. Now, you might say, oh yeah, but I like being able to switch back to stealth mode. The thing is, with a single perk or a single add-on, he already was the stealth mode. Like I said,
I do agree to some extent. I think that the bigger issue, because I want to add on to what Scott is saying, the bigger issue is that Pursuer mode is just pointless, because why would you walk around without stealth? Because Myers can now he can essentially be the better Ghostface, because he can't get revealed, so he can be literally undetectable as long as he wants, for however he wants, can stalk up and then be able to one-shot him with a dash ability. So in that sense, why would you even need Pursuer mode? Like, there's no point. Like, what's the purpose? Like, you're like, oh, I want them to hear me coming. Like, for what reason? Like, you can just have stealth, and that already is going to give you miles more like of distance than it is going to be with Pursuer in tier 2, like that. So you either are in tier 1 or tier 3, you could, or Evil Incarnate, or whatever you want to call it, but the Pursuer is pointless in my opinion. And of course, Scott does make a relatively good point, I would say. You can bring perks for undetectable, and I think that's also what made Myers like not even really a stealth killer at that point, because he only was stealthy for like literally the start of the game. So that was like kind of my issue, but at the same time, like I've said, if they just took out that stupid dash, I think it would have been a better rework.
with just a perk and add-on, you could get a 6-meter Terradius in tier 2, which again is basically non-existent. That's basically 0 Terradius whatsoever. So I don't see this switching as much of a benefit because I would run those and I would basically already have no Terradius at all. There would still be no time to react. The only true upside to having a true stealth form is your aura can't be read. So if there was an aura reading perk or something like that that would prevent the, you from being able to ambush the survivor, then in that scenario, being able to switch back and forth is better. But at the same time, we need to look at what we lost there. Now, Tier 1 Myers is back to being 4.2 meters a second. He was briefly 4.4 by default, and that was really nice. So you could get out of Tier 1 even faster, and again, not have to worry about that. Now he's back down to 4.2 unless you run an add-on to compensate for that loss.
I didn't, the thing is, I haven't actually played the rework yet. I just been, when I have been able to play, I just focus on trying to grind Ghostface. But I do plan on playing him in the future for a different project. But when talking about this in particular, I was under the impression that it was a 4.4 movement speed with the stalker mode or whatever it's called. But 4.2 is pretty bad. I'm like, which at the same time, I'm not really that surprised. Pig, I think obviously moves faster, but it still would be more beneficial to be crouched when approaching a generator than it would be to be going into the chase standing, because you want to try to close as much distance as you can to get the hit. Now, when it comes down to Myers, I think you kind of follow that same perspective, in my opinion, and I would probably just, if it was me, I'd be running the add-on for the faster movement in stock mode, because it's just more beneficial to you as a player overall, because of the fact that you just want to close the gap to get to that distance that you need, or if you're able to stalk, which don't even get me started on the 32-meter stalk range, which is ridiculous. I don't know why that's a thing, because Myers is always a mile away in the movies watching you. Why would he be within that range so you could look back at him like, oh, there you are? He's not gonna do that.
Really, the thing with Myers and these changes here is they gave him a decent amount of things, but they took more away than they gave to him. If you look at the actual change listing of buffs and nerfs, he actually got more nerfs than buffs, which is ridiculous because he was already one of the worst killers in the game. So let's go over actually the whole thing with Pursuer mode.
Yeah, if you ask me, I considered Myers one of the middle to lower in the C tiers. Genuinely was sitting in there in the C tier. The fact he was able to completely eliminate somebody from the game prevented him, I think, from being a complete D tier. And also the fact he just doesn't have his power just removed for no reason. Unless you actively were stalking so often and not in the game not ending at that point that you run out, but that could have been solved at the patch. But the point is, I do agree. They took out a lot of things from this character, even just from data alone. They took so much stuff off of him to give him so little. It's actually insane.
Now, Pursuer mode. People are saying, oh man, it's crazy. You get a 20% longer lunge. You have 20% reduction in stun, 20% faster pallet breaking, 20% faster vault. All these things are crazy. That's so much better. Yeah, not really. Let's actually look at what the numbers mean. Because the numbers are really the determining factor here. All of these things, in theory, are good ideas to make him a more relentless force when he's tearing up and stuff like that. I'm okay with that. In fact, I even support that design. But it's really a numbers game here. Let's go over what these things actually mean. He's got a 20% longer lunge in Pursuer mode. That's crazy. Not really. It's 0.1 seconds longer of a lunge. You go from 0.5 seconds to 0.6 seconds. If I played a video back-to-back of a 0.5 second lunge and a 0.6 second lunge, you would not be able to tell the difference. It is functionally imperceptible, the actual difference 0.1 second of lunges. Now, is it...
I have to say that is in a lot of ways I've disagreed with Scott, but this, I have to say, he's not wrong. This is exactly what I've been trying to show people when it comes down to this game, is that numbers are extremely important. And when you see stuff like percentages and things like that, you need to understand what the base value is. And percentages are why Pop Goes the Weasel is one of the worst slowdown perks in the game. It's because of the fact that 20% of current is scaled off of the progress that the gen already has. So it already is not going to be that much damage onto a generator because it's 20% of, say, 30% of the gen. So that's only like barely a couple decimal points. Or if it's like, if the pop is only strong if you're able to find a gen that's 99, because then you'll get the 20% of the 90 charges. So that's a good amount. You'll get the full 20. But if it's just math sucks, okay? Math sucks. Because a 20% lunge onto basic lunge is, as stated by Scott here, it's a 0.1. Like, because you always have to take into account what is the base number that we're adding a percentage to. That's even works with like math when you're doing like you're buying shit. Like this is important stuff, man.
Actually useless? No. Maybe 1 in 50 lunges you'll hit a hit that you normally wouldn't have hit, and that's great. That's not a power. That's not really much of anything. So let's go over the other things. Okay, so he can vault 20% faster. That's really nice. That is nice. Except old tier 2 Myers also vaulted 20% faster. So many people think this is a buff. It's nothing. He always had a 20% faster.
Thank you, Scott, for saying that, because this is something I wanted to point out when I was talking about the Ghostface buffs, quote unquote, around that time. Believe it or not, people kept saying, "Oh, Ghostface got buffed. Ghostface got buffed," and it was like, no, he didn't. Like, you're basically taking an add-on that you would just equip and then just made it basically the same exact thing if you just equipped the add-on. So sure, you're getting like a half second of this or a half decimal point of that, but when you put the add-on and you equip it, it's just pre-patched Ghostface with the add-on equipped. So Matchbook was pointless and Philly was pointless, and it's like it did nothing. So that is something that we see behavior does a lot, even with Ghostface, and now we're seeing it again. They just copy pasted the same part and just essentially, and then that's it. Like, and then people then think, oh, that's a buff, that means he's really good now. It's like, no, he already had that. It doesn't change anything. Like, it's exactly the same value. So like this is nothing new, of course.
Vault in tier 2. Now, admittedly, that's actually something I didn't know for a while as well. I didn't know tier 2 Myers had a better vault for like 5 years. I thought it was just tier 3 was better, but no, tier 2 Myers actually vaulted 20% faster by default. So this is not an upgrade. It's just you're getting what you already had. So that is kind of a misleading thing too. It's not a buff. It's just you already had that. Let's look at a 20% reduction in stuns. That's nice because Enduring is a great perk. True. But Enduring is a great perk because of the number associated with it. A 50% reduction enables you to actually functionally do certain things. A 50% reduction, if you get stunned on the same side as the survivor, you can hit, get stunned, turn around, hit, and instantly down people. The 50% number makes that possible. You can't do that with 20%, because that's a 1.6 second stun instead of a 1 second stun. They have enough time to fall back over the pallet, so you can't do that. Additionally, the full version of Enduring enables you to, like on unsafe pellets, get stunned and then just kind of walk around the pallet. You don't have to kick it. But a 20% reduction is not really quite enough for you to be able to get stunned and then walk around the pallet and be able to hit them. They'll likely just get around for another loop then.
I completely agree with Scott. As somebody who, when I started playing Ghostface, would be using Spirit Fury Enduring religiously. That was my main build for as long as I've been playing the character, up to around recently when I started using Play With Your Food, like, as my main build now. I would 100% agree with that. Like, whatever Scott even mentioned about the palette, that's true too. That's something you can do, because that's just something to do with like how they end up on the palette side. It's weird, but you can do that. Now, 20% is not enough for that. Now, you can equip Enduring and it'll be like 70, I guess, but like Enduring by itself would have also done the same thing. You might have been able to gain maybe like a half second, depending on the size of the tile, but most of these tiles are pretty big, pretty bulky, like rocks and stuff like that, so it's not going to be super noticeable. And so I have to agree with Scott on this too, as somebody who has used like Enduring for so freaking long, especially with Spirit Fury. It's 20% is not enough. Now, I'm not saying that it should be like removed or anything, but I'm just saying that 20% is just not as enough compared to a perk that can just do better. And I'm pretty sure that's what Scott is saying as well.
I said, all of these are just very specific to the actual values associated with them. You see 20% buff across the board, but then you actually look at what's happening, and it's actually not having any tangible effect on the match whatsoever.
Yeah, that Scott is right on that. Like I've stated before, like 20% sounds crazy until you take into account what kind of percentage it's taking. Like Pop Goes the Weasel, if it's current progress, it scales off of whatever the base amount that it is trying to remove. So in this instance, it's trying to increase the amount of the base value that it's trying to increase. So it's only going to give you a decimal point of a difference because it's 20% of, let's say, 1.0 or 1.6. So you're getting like 0.1, so it's 1.7 or something. Like it's so ridiculously stupid how that works. You know what I mean? But that's just how math is, and that's how the game is.
It's just something when it happens, you go, oh, that's nice. But that's kind of really the only thing it's doing for you. The only thing that is a flat out upgrade is the 20% increased pallet kick speed, which is just nice. That's just you get brutal strength in pursuer form.
Well, that's nice. I like that. You know, brutal strength is one of my favorite perks, so that's nice to see that at least Myers can get it in pursuer that nobody uses. So that's cool.
That's nice. That's it. That's kind of like the only tangible, true benefit you actually have. The vault is imperceptible, the vault speed is not a change at all, and the enduring effect doesn't functionally change any actual impact when you're dealing with loops and double hits and getting enduring stunts and things like that. So really the only thing you tangibly benefit from is the 20% faster pallet kick, which even then, brutal strength is like just an okay perk. Like having a mode that's just brutal strength is not much of really anything. That's just like, okay, that's not a power. Now what we lost from that is far more impactful. So the Terradius, like I said, went from 16 meters to 24 meters. That is a massive, massive nerf that gives survivors several more seconds of time to react to you approaching. Now, you could also sneak up to them in the stealth form as well, but then the whole issue here is you lose that ability to go from sneaking up to someone into an instant down. You cannot do that anymore because of the lengthy wind-up animation of going from tier 2 to tier 3. So before we had a potentially 6-meter Terradius tier 2, where you basically just, you couldn't react to that. He would instantly go to tier 3 and you go down. Now you can kind of mimic that by 99ing your Stalker form, and then going to Pursuer, and then quickly going to Evil Incarnate. So you can kind of mimic that, but then you have to go through this lengthy animation. And not only do you have to go through this animation, but you also can't instantly attack because survivors are not exposed anymore. An attack, a melee M1 attack, is just basically one frame. You just hit them and they're just, within one frame, they're down. With this new lunge, you have to charge it at least like a quarter of the way before you can actually let it go. And then it's also a special attack that doesn't have like instant damaging frames. You have to like let the charge go for a little bit and then it starts going. So when you're trying to sneak up to ambush somebody, not only do you have to transition into your form and look at your knife as they get to a window, but now you also can't immediately swing. You have to like wait for the bar to charge a bit and then you can swing.
So that right there that Scott is describing is essentially how Chucky functions, where you can't get into dash immediately. You have to first like start giggling, then you charge with the right, like, and he starts like, you know, getting ready. Then he starts yelling, and then you see that he starts running, and then he can jump into the air after you let go for it to actually hit them. Because as you guys know, when he's running, he doesn't actually do any damage, right? Because he can slide off of you, essentially. If he's running into a survivor, you're gonna slide right off of them because you're not letting go of the ability for it to actually hit them. The same way is with Myers, essentially. You have to first activate, then you gotta like and look at your knife, then you gotta charge it for a little bit, then you gotta let it go, and then the travel time, and then you're down. So that's about like 5 steps before you actually get to doing your job, and that is a lot. Like, and it's gonna feel clunky because you have to kind of follow that flow chart for you to go to that, and that's why a lot of people compared it to Chucky, and that's why a lot of people that probably have played Chucky probably enjoy it because it's the same exact thing. If they enjoy that thing. And, you know, I mean, I main Chucky, but I'm a P100 Chucky as well, right? And I, you know, Chucky's fine, but I wouldn't, if I wanted to play Chucky, I'd just play Chucky. So that's just where I'm standing when it comes to that.
tetanus and you just like have to keep going in a straight line. So that's terrible. It's just not a good power. It's not at all a good compensation. So what a lot of people are doing now is just running Fragrant Tuft of Hair, which gives you old Myers, which is boring because you're not even using a rework anymore. You're just playing the old killer, except he's even weaker because now you can't even do the tier 2 to tier 3 instant down. Now you got to go through the blade observe animation and then you got to charge the bar to even do it. So it's actually just straight up weaker than the older Myers. Like the lunge, I believe, is like 0.1 seconds longer than previously, which woo. But
yeah, I gotta agree with that point as well. Just to quickly touch on it, like I have seen gameplay of the Fragrant Tuft of Hair, and I just was not really that impressed. And I really missed that old stance he would do. Like it was so awesome when you were in tier 3, and then you just see the knife sticking out from the top of the screen, and you go ding 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 ding. You know what I'm saying? Like you're like running toward people. And you're like, your hand is up and you're like looking at them and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get you, you know, like it was really cool. But now he's in chase and he's just kind of holding it to his side, like just walking up to you all aggressively. And it's like, I feel like it even dismisses that feel, like, like, you know, especially even with Fragrant Tuft, because the animation got shifted over to the dash part. So you can only see the fun like arm lift only when he's charging. So I was like, like it just doesn't feel good. And I wish they just made it so that like when he's in like the Fragrant Tuft, they just kind of kept it so his arm stayed up. Like it was just way cooler when he did that. Man, I'm very disappointed with the Myers rework, as I've stated many times. But even talking about it now is, yeah, I do agree with it. But with that being said, the original video is linked in the description, so you can watch the rest on your own and kind of listen to more points that Scott is making. But I gotta say that, yeah, no, like I do disagree on some things, but mainly I agree on the vast majority of what Scott was talking about, and that's why I wanted to make sure I included the context, you know, in the video here, so that, you know, we give the best opportunity for the points to be explained. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube things. Check out the description for the links to support the channel. Consider becoming a member on YouTube or Patreon, or even subbing on Twitch, so that you can get your name read at the end of every video. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Well, I wanted to go ahead and take some time out to thank all my members from Patreon with Crow King 101, my YouTube members, Majora Jeff, Endire, Evil Peachy YT, Zero Mocker, Christian, Hexdev, and Crow Vader, and for my Twitch subscribers, Cake is the Road, Danica 2002, Final Girl _Bunny, Acklefin, Chili Cinderace, Zero Mocker, Ginsburg, Johns 117 _ Lovely Ghost TTV, Jar TTV, Zazaboo, and Crow Vader. Just wanted to thank you guys. And if you also want to have your name read off at the end of every video, make sure you join on one of these platforms to get one of those perks, as well as the other perks you get. So appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much.